Today we're going over motions of the thumb, and the complicated part here is remembering basically what is thumb abduction and what is thumb extension. So a lot of people get those confused, and from there everything gets a little complicated. So I'm going to give you a few tips to remember these different positions, but really all you need to do is remember one of these positions and everything else kind of falls into place. You can kind of figure out everything else from there. So I'll give you a few tips and you just pick which one works for you, and then everything should work out for everyone involved. So let's start off with thumb abduction. So this is what it would look like. I'm abducting my thumb. It is considered perpendicular from the palm, arising from the plane of the palm. I'll give you a 3D tour. So abduction, abduction. And the way I remember this is because I like sci-fi and I think of abduction. The first thing that comes to mind is alien abduction. I think about my palm and I think about that as kind of like, a pasture land. And I think of my thumb being abducted, in the middle of the night by a little UFO. And he's abducting me away from the fields, just like those alien abductions from the 1990s that, I watched too much of. X-Files, believe it. So this is abduction. I think of that. If you're not into aliens or sci-fi, I don't blame you. Another way you can think about it is if you make a little sign of A with your hand, as you can see here, you have to do that by thumb abduction. So I think of this A, and then I think of, it's abduction, that I use that A, and that gets me to the answer. So if this is abduction, adduction is just adding the thumb back to the palm. So again, abduction, adduction, adding to the palm. Extension is what you would do if you were hitchhiking. You would extend your thumb. Flexion is just the opposite. We're curling in like this. The way I think about that is if you're making a fist, you have to flex your thumb to make a good fist. So use those two F's there, flexion and fist, and it'll help you remember that. Opposition is the thumb meeting the other pads of the other digits. So if you need a visual cue, you can think about the thumb and your other digit make an O for opposition. So those are the main key movements of the thumb. Just a little FYI, you may never need this technically, but I should probably include it. So because extension and abduction are confused so easily, some people just rewrote the names for these things and they said, forget extension, we're going to rename it to something else. So you may see this in kind of older textbooks or maybe a different professor. So instead of abduction, they would call this palmar abduction because it's abducting away from the palm. Instead of extension, they would call this radial abduction. Obviously, if you know radial deviation, we're moving the wrist towards the radial side of the forearm. So radial abduction is just the thumb moving towards the radius, but you probably don't see it very much nowadays. Just something to think about. Okay, so that does it. Hope it helps. If you need some good luck vibes for the next test, hey, just leave me a comment below and I'll always hit you back. As always, thanks for watching, and of course, good luck on your next test.